Hello everyone and welcome! If you've been following along with this channel for the past few months, you'll know that FMS has sent me a number of their highly detailed ready-to-run RC vehicles for review. That of course includes this great-looking Chevy K10 pickup. It's a solid rig that's fun to drive and looks very good right out of the box. But of course I don't intend to keep this truck stock for long. As I've said before, I want to design a bunch of 3D printable accessories for these rigs, and I've even asked you all for your ideas on what parts you'd like to see. I've got a long list of ideas thanks to you guys, and today I'm going to start on the first item, which is designed to fit this K10, and that's a bed cap. Also known as a camper shell, canopy, or topper, whatever you want to call them, they've been a popular add-on to many full-scale pickup trucks for decades. They provide a way to enclose the bed, increasing its functionality and offering protection to the cargo. They're also popular to use when camping. I'm going to be designing my own cap that will fit this 1/18 scale FMS K10. Of course, there's no shortage of reference material and inspiration to be found online, which is where I started. I looked at both vintage and modern designs, and some pretty groovy looking ones as well. Eventually though, I decided to start with something pretty basic. A nice simple design that's somewhat contemporary, but also wouldn't look out of place at least as far back as the 1980s or 90s. Before I could begin though, I needed to take a bunch of measurements from the bed and the back of the cab. I could then use those measurements to design my own part, which, if all goes well, it should fit like a glove. For anyone doing a similar project to this at home, definitely don't skimp when it comes to getting accurate measurements. I used Autodesk Fusion 360 to design this part. Really, it's not a very difficult part to make if any of you designers out there want to give it a try yourself, but the biggest thing is really making sure that you've got good measurements and references to work off of. I started out by making the basic shape, I hollowed it out, and gradually added more details to it. Now I knew I wanted a rear opening door, sort of a lift gate, whatever you want to call it. I think about every real bed cap has one of these, so of course I wanted mine to have one as well. I bought a bunch of these little jewelry box hinges, which I got some measurements from, and then basically made my design around these hinges. It took me some time to get everything positioned so that the door would open wide enough, but I was able to get things looking and functioning how I wanted, well, at least within CAD. You can actually rig up hinges and joints within Fusion 360, but here I just sort of winged it. Of course, these hinges are proportionally larger than what they would be on a real bed cap, but they'll look alright and should function very well. Really, in terms of difficulty, it was mostly all downhill from there. I put in the windows, making a larger recessed area in the back for the clear plastic to be placed into. I might go back and make the side windows a square recessed area rather than the same shape as the window, which is what I have here, just to make those clear plastic pieces easier to cut. Not sure how big of a difference that'll make, but that's just a thought I had. I do plan on making some stencils for the windows so that you can print those stencils, trace around them, and cut your clear plastic pieces to the perfect size. It should make the process of cutting out the windows very easy. Now after all that, figuring out a way to secure this part to the truck took a little thinking. I didn't want to have to use glue or double-sided tape or anything like that. I also didn't want to have to drill any holes or modify the truck in any way. The solution I came up with might not be the best, but it worked. Basically, I made a slot in the side closest to the cab to keep it from lifting up. I then made some separate pieces that will be screwed onto each side to hold the rest of the cap in place and keep it from lifting or sliding off. Like I said, I'm not sure if this is the best way to mount it, but it seemed promising. And here's a look at the completed design. Probably needless to say, but I was definitely eager to get these parts 3D printed, so that's what I did next. I started by printing the main cap piece. For the sake of time, I printed it at a pretty high speed and a taller layer height, so the finished part wasn't of the highest quality, but it will be good enough for this first prototype. I was very pleased to see that this cap fit just about perfectly. I really couldn't be happier with it. So far so good, so I continued on by printing the remaining parts. The door went on without too much trouble. It fits the hinges well, and the micro hardware, although a little bit of a pain to work with, held it all together just fine. The door does sit a little lower than I want it to, and it's a little flimsy, but other than that, it's looking good. I got both of the rear mounts installed, which is a little bit of a pain due to the angle that you have to screw them in at, but with a little care, I got those screws threaded in, and it holds the cap on well enough that I can actually lift the whole truck up with just the cap, no problem. Although honestly, I'm not sure I'd recommend holding your truck like this, just in case. This is, however, too much play. See how I can move it around? I'll need to tweak the design of each mount to prevent this. A tad bit of play might be unavoidable, but I'm pretty sure once I dial things in, it's going to fit a lot more snug. For a first prototype though, and without having an actual design of the bed to work off of, I'm going to call this a win. It looks great, fits great, it feels quite durable, all things considered. Just need to be a little bit careful with that rear door and those hinges, but I'm sure this could take a few accidents and not get damaged. There's certainly some room for improvement as I've discussed, but man, it's close. I've got the next version in the print queue with some modified mounts, which will hopefully make this thing fit a little tighter, so we'll see. Now I do plan on selling at least a few of these as kits, but of course not until I refine the design a bit. For now though, I have posted the STL files on Patreon. Of course, do keep in mind that this design is still a work in progress, so if you're okay with maybe having to shim those mounts a bit to eliminate that play, go right ahead and fire up your 3D printer, but if you wait, there will be a more refined version coming in the near future. The link to that will be below in the description. There are lots more parts on the way, so be sure to stay tuned for that. Keep the ideas coming. I enjoy seeing all of the different things that you all have suggested. Some are certainly more feasible than others, but there's a lot of cool things that we can design for these trucks. But that is going to be all for today's video. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.